Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Mourning, the Immortal, out August 29th on Supreme Chaos Records. The album has 9 tracks, 47 minutes in length, and this is the band's 7th full-length studio album. They are a Swedish melodic death metal band. If I had to pick my least favorite thing about this record, it would be the design, the track listing, the order of the songs. I'm not a huge fan of. I'm not a huge fan for two simple reasons. One, I don't feel like it immerses the listener into the overall album. It doesn't allow you to feel like you're getting deeper and deeper into the record. It almost gives you this sense of just skimming the surface. The other aspect is, for an album with this kind of sound, and we're going to talk more about the sound, but for an album with this kind of sound, with this kind of essence, with this kind of atmosphere, you definitely need a track listing that connects the songs a little bit better, that allows you to see the end of one as the beginning of the other, so that the overall experience becomes a lot more cohesive, it becomes a lot more concise, and the album misses the point from that perspective in terms of how it all comes together. So the album design doesn't overall hurt the quality of the individual songs, but it does hurt the overall experience that this album could offer at a much deeper level. As far as the sound is concerned, I thought the sound on this record was excellent, and the attributes within the sound were also excellent. I see 3 main focal points, or 3 main pillars as far as the sound on this album is concerned. One is the overall guitar sound, the overall guitar experience is phenomenal. The other is the atmosphere that this album has is palpable. Every single song, from track to track, the overall album has a great atmosphere associated with it. Third, that atmosphere is in a lot connected with the overall progginess that, while being subtle, is impactful, and how the sound impacts the listener and how the sound really defines the DNA of each individual song. Let's talk about these 3 aspects, starting off with the progginess. This is not an overly progressive sounding record, by no means. It's still at its core a very traditional, old school, modern, a little bit of both, melodic, Swedish melodic death metal record. But I see a lot of other elements coming in, and that progginess is definitely one of those elements that comes in and helps define some of the boundaries of the sound, and it definitely helps define the individual DNA of these songs, and therefore connecting that DNA allows the overall album to feel proggy on one hand without sounding overly proggy on the other. It's really this fine line that the band is able to walk on this album, that's able to create this sort of experience. And when you're not necessarily a huge fan of prog, as I'm not, this album allows it to be a little bit more simplified in its processes, so it doesn't lose the listener and it doesn't lose itself within itself. It's exactly the amount that you need in order for the album to still be a melodic death metal record, but to be a melodic death metal record that is not one-dimensional. A lot more texture, a lot more rich. There's a lot more for you to peel, for you to discover on a song-by-song basis. Then that progginess is tied in with the overall atmosphere of the album. To me, that's undeniable. A lot of times, the songs are not necessarily musically progressive, but the atmosphere that's coming out of the sound, that's coming out of the songs, creates this aura of progginess around the tracks. And I think that is also a great element to have, because you could still remain melodic, you can still remain melancholic, you can still remain heavy, have all those traditional aspects of melodic death metal still present in the overall sound and in the individual sound of the songs, but at the same time creating this aura of progginess. It expands the bandwidth of the tracks, and it makes them a lot richer, a lot more powerful in terms of the emotions that they carry and the emotions that they offer. The last aspect that I mentioned is the guitar sound. I think the guitar sound throughout this entire record is excellent. It's definitely one of the highlights, sonically, one of the highlights of this album. You know, you could talk about something else. For example, the drum sound is really potent, very robust on the album. I really enjoy the bass sound popping quite a bit throughout, in a subtle way, but quite a bit throughout, which also adds to the progginess of the record more so than any grooviness that this album could have. But every time that you listen to a song on this album, either individually or in the context of the record, I think you're always going to gravitate towards the guitars, the excellence of the guitar sound, the execution, the melodies, the melancholy that they have, the overall drive that they offer. The solos on this record are really well put together, emphasizing the mood, the atmosphere of the individual songs, adding value to the creation and to the overall structure of the tracks. Just really well done. It's a really well crafted, very guitar focused, very guitar driven album, top to bottom, with still a sense of simplicity to it, but with a great impact that ends that simplicity when that atmosphere becomes a little bit more progressive. So I really enjoy the overall sound on this album. I thought it was just excellent. Once you get into the vocals are as dynamic as the sound on the individual songs is. You're going to find that between the changes that exist, clean, harsh vocals, both of them having room to breathe, to offer different ideas, to offer different sides of the same coin, and also have an impact on the atmosphere of the tracks. Obviously, the clean vocals on this record emphasize not only the melodic and melancholic side of the album, but also emphasize a little bit of that atmosphere that permeates into that prog world that this record is definitely navigating towards. So I enjoyed both styles, both experiences, but better yet, the way they cooperate with one another on the tracks is really what sells this album. Understanding the right moments, the right time, so that you can get the right emotion out of each one of those different styles. Putting it all together, you have here an album that on one hand, it requires a little bit of time. This is not one of those records that you can just skim through it and feel like you got everything that there is to offer. This album is a lot more complex than it appears. And because of that, it really requires the attention of the listener and really requires you to dive a little bit deeper into it. Once you do that, the album opens up and gives it all of its secrets. And I think it's worth working for it. The design, the structure of the album could have made the process easier, in my opinion, but that takes nothing away from the quality of the individual songs and the emotions that they carry. As far as favorite tracks are concerned, I want to start off with As Long as the Twilight Stays. Very soft opening to this song. It builds up with an incredible atmosphere and even a little bit of that proggy backdrop that derives from that atmosphere that's very titillating as the song develops. And this is a track that really develops, and I really like the development of the song. It has some really heavy moments within the track. It has some really cool, more melancholic, melodic elements that kind of become the spinal cord of the song itself, and they remain intact throughout the song regardless of the heaviness or regardless of everything else that's happening around it. It's a song that's super rich, very well textured, feeling more dynamic in terms of the movement that creates within itself, and not allowing the song to become one directional. I think that's really important. It's a song that's well grounded, well delivered, well executed. Then you have Staghorn. This is by far one of the top songs of the album. I would say is in my top 2 songs of the record. And this song has this more narrow experience to it, which allows the track to also feel quite dark. This is a very dark feeling song, and at times even sounding song, because there's some black metal elements influencing the sound of this track, allowing it to feel even more narrow. Now, I really like the development and transitions that exist within this song, because it's not a black metal song straight through. It does have some black metal moments within it, but it also has some progressive moments within it. It also has some melodic death metal moments within it. It's a song that has a lot of different faces, and the ability to move from one face to the other without jolting the track, creating a sense of fluidity, is really what allows the song to be as impactful as it is. It culminates, the track really culminates at its chorus, and the chorus on this song is just super haunting. both musically and vocally, but the clean vocals on the chorus really allow you to feel mesmerized by it, and that increases that level of hauntedness that the track has. Great guitar sounding song. Great guitar sounding song. Incredibly dynamic and volatile song because of these movements, but never chaotic in its processes. And I think that is very important. I really like that aspect of the track itself. Last but definitely not least, North Star. This is a track with the clean vocals really predominating throughout. And when you have clean vocals well delivered like they are on this song, the sound itself feels more open. It feels like the song can breathe a little bit more, and due to that it becomes a much bigger sounding track. Now there's still some heavier vocals and heavier sound within this song, but they sound even heavier because of how the clean vocals and how the more melodic aspects of the track really wraps itself around those heavier portions really well, making the track even at its heaviest still sound very open, and like the air can breathe through it. So it's a really interesting song because it has a great vocal dynamic between it, but the ability to use the clean vocals in a more accurate and in a more progressive way, if you will, throughout the entire song really changes the texture and sound behind it, and the song becomes, like I said, a much bigger sounding track all around. One of the biggest sounding songs that this album has to offer. This is it, In Mourning with the Immortal, once again out August 29th on Supreme Chaos Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Hit me up in the comment section. I'll see you all at the next video. Take care, guys.